And there are three key pillars of artificial intelligence as far as India is concerned. One, we do not want to go the way of ironclad legislation, the way EU has gone for. Second, we want to have soft touch regulations that will ensure enough guardrails for safety and security, but at the same point of time will not stifle innovation or starve our innovators from data and the required areas of AI innovation. And the third key pillar, and why it distinguishes from the global north, is that we are more based on a welfare outcome-based approach than the global north's risk-based approach. So for us, it is more important that artificial intelligence is not limited to algorithms and centralization. AI should be democratized. It should not be localized in the hands of a few. And the benefits of AI must transcend to the last person at the bottom of the pyramid. For the farmers, it should ensure better predictive analysis to ensure better sowing and yields. For the expectant mothers, it should ensure better prenatal and neonatal care. For the students, it should ensure better innovation in the classrooms. For the gig workers, it should ensure better welfare. So just to pause at this point of time, I would say these are the three key pillars where India and probably global south is differentiated from the global north. Thank you.
Thank you, Trisha. The way I look at it is, I think India is very uniquely positioned because we, within India, have an Indian North and Indian South. So I think India can be a good laboratory and testing case with regard to how all the advances that are happening in AI can be used for the maximum benefit of the, if I may use the expression, local South. While I have been working along with Mr. Shashmit Patra, my fellow member on the standing committee, I think I have found that the major focus of India, and that is why I call it India is uniquely positioned, is where right from the inception we have been focused less on regulation. We would want to learn. We would want to learn from the regulations made by the other countries and see where they are going right and where they are going wrong. So the government in that sense has very smartly not been very proactive, but it's been responding from time to time, and again from a larger welfare perspective. So I think where I find this technology promising and the approach of India quite commendable, and I'm not from the ruling party, so don't think that I'm being complimentary. Yeah. So I find it commendable is that right from the inception we have a clear vision that we will use this technology for maximum public good and for maximum public benefit. We also have the challenge of limited resources, but infinite people who need to be tended to. So we need to make our solutions very smart and efficient, make them work at a population scale. So this can actually be a great pilot case for the rest of the world. And maybe we can harness this as we go along working with the global north, but helping the global south.
Thank you. Ambassador Garcia.
Thank you. I've just arrived in New Delhi today, early in the morning. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm happy to be here. Congratulations on India's leadership in hosting these important summits. I think in terms of your question is about the North Star that we have, but actually it is the South Star, right? I think we should start changing our mindsets to see the world according to our views, so from the Southern Hemisphere. I think that's the first point, but I think one concept that should be at the center of our concerns is development, of course. That AI should be development oriented, because when we see the debates on AI governance a few years ago, we had some AI principles, transparency, accountability, or human rights, fair, equitable, ethical AI, responsible AI. But where is development in this scenario? Because this is when we see the reality in Latin America, in Africa, in parts of Asia, Middle East, etc. For the global South, we should ask them what your priorities are. So when we think of, for example, agentic AI, we say that it's the next big thing, or it was supposed to be last year, but to do what? To book a trip for you to go to the Disneylands in the US? Maybe it's not what we need. Maybe we need AI for healthcare, AI for education, AI for local solutions. So I think when we see this process of the summits, India made the best choice, because the 3 pillars for the AI Impact Summit, as you know, the sutras are people, planet, and progress. People, because we need more inclusion, more people being involved and benefiting from AI. Planet, because it needs to be sustainable. Otherwise, we are destroying the planet. And progress, because, as my colleagues said, we need AI for economic development, social, and for the benefit of our populations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you so much. I will echo Ambassador Eugenio about the user needs. There is no single AI. There are multiple AIs. It's a big stack, ranging from AI for AI, foundational models, to AI for public goods, for AI for public service, and then that's big range. And then we need to find the granular level that fit with the purpose of development of the AI for the member states, for each country, for each needs. So it should be user needs driven rather than competition driven, which is the case today. I mean, see, countries are competing around LLMs, but in fact, in the infinity, LLMs is just a tool, and then that should not be the finality. LLM will not be the final purpose of the AI. AI should serve people and build solutions for people. But if you go back to one of the biggest economic actors when it comes to the AI, OpenAI, and with their ChatGPT tool and biggest LLM ever, meaning they are competing on the size of the AI, not about the benefit they are delivering. And then we can see that through the economic results of the company itself, meaning they have no revenue. So we need to locate the value of AI. What is the value that we would like to extract from the AI? Value is a very relative notion for each country and for each citizen in each country. And then that should be our North Star. How to make the AI a bottom-up approach, coming from citizens' needs and building upon those needs to satisfy and answer and make their life better.
Thank you. On the note of being driven by use rather than benchmarks, a question for both Dr. Patra and Sriniranjan Reddy. India's digital transformation is very much tied to digital public infrastructure, which is rooted in a public good, of course. So how should India use DPI to ensure that the benefits of AI do go to the more than 1.4 million people that are in this so-called last mile, starting with Sriniranjan Reddy?
See, the digital public infrastructure is one stack. India is working on this stack approach where they want to use DPI for the purpose of using AI to see how many benefits and in what measure it can it be reached. But I think even apart from the DPI stack itself, I think I've been noticing that a lot of state governments have been operating outside the DPI infrastructure, and they have been working at a population scale. Because each of the state governments, and I think it slowly percolate down to district level administrations also, where they have these data, and because of the digital connectivity that has increased tremendously in India, they have a method of reaching the larger population digitally. So today when we do an agriculture related AI application, it has become very local, because a particular district in a state, within a state, the geographical conditions will vary, the cropping patterns will vary, the soil conditions will vary. So what's happening is, as I said, even at a very hyper-local level, the state governments are able to manage and scale for their specific requirements at that particular level. But at a DPI level, I think, yes, there are some potential uses. We are still trying to see how optimally we can use for different use cases. Yesterday when I was talking to my team, one of the thoughts that came to my mind was, when you now have UPI and the DPI, and you have credit facility, the transactions that are being done at a very local vendor level who don't have credit history. I was just wondering if AI can be used for the purpose of just mapping the usage of UPI by each of the vendors, and AI will be able to actually generate and give out a summary of what they have done, which can then be sent to them if they want to use and go to a bank. The AI can also inform them that, look, in the way your transactions have gone on. It could be a vegetable vendor, it could be a fruit vendor, it could, because we have Bhashini, which is an application which speaks in different languages to different people. So there are some oral messages that are also transmitted. So if there is a credit history that's built up, just one DPI related use that can be is, what if we are able to send out to each of these people in their local language, vernacular language, that, look, whatever you have done entitles you today to have this credit history. You will be able to go to a bank. By the normal RBI norms, you may be entitled to get a loan of 50,000 rupees or 1 lakh rupees. Now that will be something that they will come to know when they hear from a bot maybe, but it is something that I think we have multiple uses that seem possible and potential. I think I'm just very excited about the possibilities yet.
I'll focus on the DPI stack. My colleague, Mr. Reddy, has very beautifully articulated the part where state governments are working beyond the DPI stack. I'll try to integrate the DPI stack. What is, for those uninitiated in this room, DPI stack means what? Digital public infrastructure means what? It basically means there are different stacks of data. The first set of data is the Aadhaar data. What is Aadhaar? Aadhaar is like the unique ID that every individual in this country has. That's your unique ID number. The second is Jan Dhan, J, which basically again is the bank accounts that have percolated down to the bottom of the pyramid. Almost 80% people are covered in this country through the Jan Dhan. The third is the DigiLocker. Today, a student wants to have a certificate notarized. You don't have to do that. You give your DigiLocker access, and anyone in this planet can access the data through your DigiLocker. So you're talking about Jan Dhan, you're talking about Aadhaar, you're talking about Mudra, and Mudra is small loans given, and then DigiLocker. So the jam trinity that is being percolated through the stack, DPI stack, added with the unique payment interface that we have, where every day 8 billion transactions are being done in real time in India. So therefore, that's the kind of data that you're sitting on in this country. So what Trisha ji is wanting to understand is, given the extent of this data, given the magnitude of this data, where does India want to use it through AI, and how does that help the common man who is in the village? I'll give you a very small example. Through this entire interface, a farmer, through a government program called as PM Kisan Yojana, receives a certain amount of money every year, every quarter. Now, for example, that data of that farmer is seeded in this data stack of DPI, which has all the information about that farmer, along with, if any crop loss is there, then what is the compensation paid. His entire history as a farmer is locked in through that Aadhaar portal. So therefore, when you're going to use that data stack, the DPI stack and the UPI stack, and on top of it, you bring in artificial intelligence, it makes intelligible decision making for the government in deriving policies and governance. So if there are any leakages in terms of funds and transfers, it will show up there. If it has to have predictive analysis that in a certain state or a certain district of this country, you have pesticides which are causing harms to the farmers, it will pop up. If it shows unseasonal rains or specific drought seasons, it will show up. So therefore, it will make governance and policy making better. And instead of intuitive measures that is being used by the government, it becomes more proactive, more AI enabled. That is why it is essential that Global South can use this formula of India for the entire Global South, especially the African Union. That's the idea behind the DPI and the AI.
Thank you, Dr. Pathar. You really zoomed in on how AI is essentially data. Thank you. Ambassador Garcia, we're going to now zoom out from individual national case studies to what countries can do together. As Brazil has chaired BRICS, how are you, in your agenda setting, navigating this tension between your countries need AI, of course, and need to build compute power to support it? How do you balance that with the need to then depend on foreign companies to be able to build out that infrastructure? So how do you do that while securing your own data and maintaining sovereignty in this space?
Thank you for the question. Yes, Brazil was president of the BRICS in last year, 2025. Now India has the presidency of the BRICS. Congratulations. But we put AI also at the center of our concerns for the BRICS agenda, and we established an AI task force last year to negotiate among the group in delegations. That we had several meetings discussing a statement that was adopted last year during the summit in Rio of the BRICS. And they said the BRICS leaders' statement on AI governance. And was the first time that we had such documents that is exclusively about AI governance at the highest level in the BRICS group. And some of the topics, I think, touch your question, because we talk about, for example, digital sovereignty, because we need to see how AI will be developed, but also respecting national choices, or each country is sovereign to decide what to do exactly in terms of where to put the money, or should I regulate, or how much, or where. And this is a decision that domestically countries will have to make this and appreciate the costs and the benefits of each choice. But we need to respect this, otherwise we'll be preaching to each other, or maybe lecturing, or maybe in a disagreement what we are supposed to do. And because when we have this point of view that is domestically, and we respect the others and how they think about it, then we can sit down and see how we can coordinate actions and work together. So that's the challenge. So, for example, developing countries should come together, so like Brazil and India, because we have already a very strong partnership. And as you know, President Lula from Brazil will be attending this summit. He's coming tomorrow. And after the summit, we have a state visit, which is a bilateral visit from President Lula to India. We have a meeting with Prime Minister Modi, and several agreements will be signed. But one especially is really important. It's a digital partnership for the future, because we will take DPI's experience from India, but also we have our experience, for example, in terms of systems of payment. We have the PIX. I don't know if you heard about this. PIX is like also a tool for financial inclusion, very successful in Brazil. So coming from Indians' experience, but also AI, high performance in computers, semiconductors, everything it's as a package in terms of cooperation, including data governance, e-government. So I think AI is key for this digital stack we are building together. So I see this a very promising partnership. And hopefully it's going to be a very successful visit as well.
I believe Brazil has one of the largest national delegations to the summit, from what I've heard. So very excited for the outcomes coming out of the next few days. And great point on avoiding just preaching to each other in endless circles. Absolutely, we should avoid that. Dr. Snene, as you're hearing these points being presented, how does the UN's Global Digital Compact process harmonize all of these national and regional priorities into a global standard that prevents digital fragmentation while still, of course, respecting the specific development needs of the Global South?
Thank you so much. Just to explain what is the Global Digital Compact, is the as taking the word of the UNSG, is the first global framework agreed on digital cooperation between all member states. And there's a lot of cooperation agreement at the UN, and there was no one related to the digital cooperation. What does it mean, digital cooperation and partnership in digital, in AI, in infrastructure? And that was voted with all member states during the General Assembly
Dr. Snene,
2 years ago.
apologies for interrupting. I just want to check if everybody's able to hear, because there is a lot of interference from the room. Is the audio audible back in the... Okay, perfect. Please go ahead.
I can start also. Be a bit more loud. Okay. And that's the Global Digital Compact. So it's the real first framework for digital cooperation at the UN level. And when it comes to the AI, there are specific actions that are being undertaken at the UN level, from scientific panel to bring some vision on AI development, both scientific risk and opportunities, a global dialogue that will start this year in Geneva and the next year in New York, to bring all stakeholders to discuss about the AI development, AI governance, AI risks, and then to get a voice around the table. Then some member-led activities like AI capacity building that should equip member states with a global understanding of the strategy and the impact of the governance being decided on their developments. Main major point, I think, and that's not the UN voice, but I'm mostly on my work on AI on a daily basis. I think that at the global level, we should not aim too high in defining a global framework of AI governance. Rather than that, we should aim to get a minimum set of standards, so that all can bring all member states around the table and agree on this minimum set of standards. The very basic human rights oriented, citizen right oriented, economic and development oriented, and peace oriented. So very basic reasons, no need to define this very complex high level and often complex to discuss a governance mechanism that we may have. And building on that set of minimum standards, we can develop in different contexts related some new governance approach. So you know that 20 years ago, there is no discussion about AI governance. Every member state was free to develop the AI vision they have at that time. So there is no today need to develop some governance mechanism that could be constraints for countries, developed countries, to develop their own AI. And that's what we hear from the member states, talking about we need the freedom in the decision-making process. Yes, for the freedom in terms of the governance mechanism, but with this minimum set of standards that should be irreducible, meaning and then in temporal, like human rights, like the right for development, and like the sovereignty notion, with some cautious when it comes to the sovereignty, because this is becoming a very granular notion of sovereignty. It could be defined at a different layer and stack. We need to define where it started and when it ends for each context and its member states.
Thank you, Dr. Snene. Where does sovereignty start? Where does it end? That's a good question. I think we're all trying to figure out what sovereign AI really means in practice as countries truly aspire to it. Bouncing off of that discussion, Ambassador Garcia, back to you. As Brazil hands the baton to India for BRICS, what's on your wish list in terms of how the nations of the Global South can move beyond the more principles-based frame around AI ethics and governance to actualize the idea of polylateral governance, as you've put it in the past. What in your view is the importance of the global south setting those rules for itself?
Thank you. Yes, I was talking later before about digital sovereignty, but it's not that countries should close their borders or maybe seek isolation. It's exactly the contrary, because when we say that actually when we see the world economy, it's really impossible to be detached from the supply chains, that everything now is global, and it's how the world economy works. So what you need to do is to enhance domestic capabilities and at the same time seek partnerships with other countries, other players, seek international cooperation. Then you can create alternatives that would little by little enhance your own sovereignty. I don't know if, because this is not closed sovereignty, it's open sovereignty that we seek collaborate with others to enhance our own domestic capabilities. So when we say that we have a relationship of cooperation, Brazil and India, it's good for both, because we are cooperating and also we are also enhancing our national capabilities at the same time. So I think this should be also considered in the Global South, so that we can have other different relations in terms of South-South cooperation, but also engaging in AI governance at the global level. Because when you said about competition, fragmentation, because now we see AI governance, it's a patchwork of initiatives. Sometimes they are not connected with each other, and we see a mistrust towards the multilateral system. And we see that the UN has a key role to play, because the Global South is represented in New York, in Geneva, as UN member states. So the developing countries are also, they have this opportunity to participate under the auspices of the UN. So I think it should be central to our concerns that we come to the defense of the multilateral system and the role that the UN can play as well.
So we're really breaking down what sovereignty means, not just in terms of the technology itself, but in how it's being governed. Continuing on that thread of sovereignty and how it's reflected in our national and regional ecosystems, my question to Mr. Reddy, you recently raised critical questions regarding the risk that generative AI use presents in terms of platforms extracting sensitive government data. And this is an important sovereign issue as well, right? So in a world where AI models are often hosted outside of a country's territory, how should governments then protect their sovereign data, whilst of course still making use of AI? It is immensely helpful in reducing paperwork or dull and repetitive tasks.
I think some of these concepts are still work in progress, because when you now speak of what is sovereign data, I can understand that some of the data relating to the governance itself, the government that is integrally connected with the functioning of a nation may be sovereign data. But let's say if I'm using a social media app, and if I'm using an app that is developed by an American company, and I'm using that for the purpose of having a conversation or sending some communications, now would that data become sovereign data just because the user is from a particular country? And then if the data can be stored in some other country, we need to have a global framework with regard to first defining as to what that data can be stored for, and what uses can that be put to. But suppose if someone is just storing the data for the purpose of training their data sets, as I said, it's still work in progress. These concepts are still fuzzy. Because I'm also a lawyer by profession, so I find it a little befuddling to understand what may be treated as sovereign data. As I said, if anything related to the government, governance, the country may be sovereign data, but whether any general data relating to, let's say, a photograph that someone is posting on the internet. Now, the photograph may be taken by a person of a particular nationality, but he knows that the internet is not confined to one country itself. Now, if that is on the internet and absent the copyright issues, if some data sets are working on that, if that is being used by someone, would it qualify as violating a sovereign data? I think the larger issue that I was focusing on when you referred to the questions I asked was with regard to the data not being available within India and it being available only outside India. So some of the countries are coming with some governance policy where they say, look, if you're taking data out of the country, the law can provide that you must also have a set located within the geographical limits of that particular country. If such a law is made, then depending on the extent of law, when the law provides that this would be treated as a data that needs to be stored within the country, then I think whoever is acting on that will have to be in compliance.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm just going to get a quick sense of, are we able to take questions from the audience? So let's do that, actually, and then, yeah, in front, and then one up here.
You can use this microphone. Thanks so much.
Yes. So thank you so much, and really insightful takes from all esteemed members of the panel. What I was wondering is that this theme of inclusivity has been going around for the past 2 days already. I mean, Dr. Patra, yesterday also in the panel that you did at the main venue, you spoke of how AI's use cases should reach the last mile, and I see it being echoed more and more. But in a country that's as vast as ours, how big of a challenge is the technological literacy part for policymakers and also for these last mile users? Like when we speak of, say for example, Anganwadi workers being able to use AI meaningfully or farmers being able to use AI meaningfully, is it also not imperative that they at least have some working knowledge of what that AI is? Also from a level of trust that if, say, for example, a farmer in a tier 2, tier 3 town is being given some advice by this black box, then how is that farmer just supposed to take that advice at face value, right? Because that advice may be tied into his economic well-being. So what would you think about that challenge?
Could I also ask you to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Sorry? Oh yeah, my name is Sanhit. I work on questions of technology governance and institutional readiness.
All right. And I'll also zoom out your question because Brazil has, it's a very big country with a very diverse population. So I would apply the same question to you.
We can keep. You have one. Thank you, brother. To your specific question, should a farmer also have basic rudimentary understanding about AI? Right. I look at it in this perspective, where I'm coming from. A farmer in a village in my state of Odisha, probably 10 years back, would get on a phone call, not an SMS, would get a phone call from the local if there was a cyclone appearing. 3 years back, he started getting SMSs on his smartphone if it was happening. What would AI do for him is when the skies are bright and there is no inclination to him that something is coming, he should be able to get a message to tell that the cyclone might hit in 7 days or 10 days, get your barns in place, tie up your livestock, move to a specific location. So I'm looking at it from that perspective. I'm not looking at it at this point of time for an Anganwadi worker or a farmer to have the basic understanding about AI. What I understand is, given the data stack that we have as a country, how can AI make more intelligent and better decisions and solutions for those on the ground at the bottom of the pyramid or in the fields of this. Once we have gone that distance, then probably we can start finding out, okay, how do we dovetail them into the local panchayat levels, the village levels. So the panchayat offices and the block offices and the taluk offices have a basic understanding about AI. So once we have scaled part 1, we go to part 2 and then the part 3. I'll just end with the Anganwadi worker. Let's say, for example, due to a specific water problem in a specific area, it has been historically seen during a specific season of the rainy season, children at the ages of 3 to 6 years generally fall sick for various reasons. If that is a data that is available through the health portal and is made intelligible by artificial intelligence over a period of time, then the messages will start coming to the Anganwadi worker and the block level officer that this is a period that is appearing in 2 months' time, start cleaning up the tanks, start taking care of it. So I'm looking at a very basic understanding of how it's going to play out in the lives of people. Once we have scaled that, probably then we can talk about AI intervening through capacity building programs. But as of now, again, at the cost of being repetitive, inclusive AI and welfare-based AI, outcome-based AI is something that we need to focus on.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatt. I think your point is that at this point in time, more than AI literacy, it's how useful AI is to people. Yes, absolutely. Ambassador Garcia.
Yes, also thank you for the question. I was thinking about it because Brazil, as you know, is also a very large country in territory, not same population as in India, but Brazil has a problem that is perhaps one of the challenges that we still are struggling is social inequality. I think we have some millionaires, billionaires, but the large population, I think it's mostly excluded sometimes, but we need to, our obligation as in terms of public policy is to think of how we can include, and the goal of our panel is to discuss from governance to inclusion. So inclusion within our countries. So this is, I think, what India is trying to do, taking DPI, but also other initiatives. And you see when we compare, for example, the Indian AI mission, we have the Brazilian plan for AI, which is basically similar feeling that we need to do something for the people. And the motto of this plan, the Brazilian plan, is AI for the good of all, which is very similar with what you are doing in terms of AI Impact Summit. You see that the concern that you have also in Brazil is very much aligned, or we are on the same page. It's not, it is a nice word, say AI for good, because it's not tech for the sake of tech. It's tech for something else. So I think this is the difference that because sometimes we see billionaires, CEOs from large companies, private companies overseas. They say, oh, tech is our business, so we know what we're doing. Don't worry about this. This is something that we always do the right thing, but we need to trust me. But I think, yes, but when we see the reality of developing countries, then you have to shift the mindset. I was talking before that they need to change the mindsets and really put our priorities first.
Just from a human rights perspective, I'll echo Ambassador Eugenio and Dr. Sasmit about the capacity building and awareness, raising awareness about AI. But still something is very important that was discussed about bringing the data from the citizen to train all these models. So that part requires some awareness, and that this is an informed decision is being taken by the citizen to share their data within these models, to respect their privacy, their human rights, because in AI there is no opt-out. Once you get your data inside of your model, it's there forever. So there is probably some capacity building and awareness regarding the fact that you are sharing your data for a benefit for all, but it should be optional, it should never be mandatory, and it should be an informed decision that requires some capacity building and some raising some awareness about the risk also of sharing these data to build these models.
Thank you. There was another question.
Just a practical answer to what you're asking me. What happens is when you talk of trust to a person who is not trained and who is a complete novice in terms of this field, without meaning any disrespect, what would happen is it will work at a very practical level. If there's a farmer, he sees another farmer using this and benefiting from it, then he will start trusting it. And when it comes to private enterprise, there are already a lot of private enterprises in the field. If they are able to go and reach out to a farmer and provide solutions, if they are actually delivering good results. Now, seeing one farmer use this private enterprise, the other farmers will go to the same enterprise. And if they don't deliver good results, even the first farmer who used the private enterprise won't go back to that. So this will work out practically, but it is something that would have to be earned. If it is happening at a government level, if the government is coordinating with some enterprises or providing these solutions, then the trust is something that is intrinsic. It starts with that. But even if it is the public department that is doing it, if the farmer finds that it is not useful, trust me, next year he will not trust it. He will rather go to a private enterprise which is more trustworthy. So that trust would have to be earned. So if it is the state or the government that is providing these solutions, the state would have to be mindful. Because it's not just about agriculture. If the farmer loses out on one agricultural input related data suggestion, he will not trust this even for his health, even for anything else that he may want to use.
Maybe we can take two questions together. So this one and then another one.
Very good afternoon, all of you. I'm Nikhil Peter Fernandez. So I work with renewable energy, bioenergy, and basically with farmers on a daily basis, actually. So my question is also related to farmers. And the first question would be to Dr. Patra and Sri Reddy. And the second question would be to Dr. Mehdi. So the first question is, while we are speaking about DPIs and the multiple stacks that we are having, all the marginal, the small scale farmers, they come with no CIBIL score, no credit rating and all that. So getting microloans is a major issue there. Even though we have, our government schemes wherein the monthly or the quarterly remittances happen. So from the government side, is a policy decision coming or some policy structure, infrastructure coming to that effect? That was my first question. Now to Dr. Mehdi. See, the BRICS countries as well as, the ASEAN, the African Union as well. We have our own aspirations when it comes to AI. And if you take African Union, 40%, the entire union have, I think, about 40% of connectivity in terms of internet connectivity till date. So there are a lot of limitations. And to add to that, there are a lot of non-state actors in play who have ease of access to AI. It's not a secret thing or anything. So from the UN's perspective and from the UN side, what is being done to that effect in terms of regulations? Thank you.
Can you elaborate what you mean by non-state actors here?
Terrorists?
Directly.
Yeah.
just to make sure.
Yeah. My question was because I'm basically a veteran, so hence interest in that field. Thank you.
I had briefly spoken about the credit scores and how AI could help. I'm not sure if the government is coming up with any scheme because until they put it out in the public, they may be working on it is my clear idea because Mr. Nalekani has been suggesting this for a long time that we need to have this financial stack. So I'm hoping the government is working on it, but I actually see it happening very soon. If the state doesn't come up with it, somebody will come up with a solution and offer it to the state for offering it in the digital stack.
Thanks for the question. And then, there is a need for building some more robust governance mechanisms. But this is a fully member state-driven decision. This is a sovereign decision. It's not the UN role to build a decision, but to raise awareness, to support in building that decision. And that's typically the role of the UN with the new mechanism being built, the global dialogue, the international scientific panel, and the capacity building. We need to raise the awareness to build and support in in activating the member states, but it's not our role to build their own governance. This is a sovereign decision that is fully in hands of the member states.
We just have a minute left, so we won't have time for any further questions. And I know Mr. Reddy has to go to Sangeet soon. So I'll ask you all to give your final thoughts quickly, maybe 15 seconds each to close up the panel. Dr. Pat.
15 seconds. I believe AI for Global South is real, and we need to engage together. Thank you. It just told me to shut up.
Just a quick word, I think good start, great start. I think we need to have more of multilateral and mini-lateral coalitions for the purpose of bringing this to action.
In my case, I think we need to take advantage of opportunities, because in developing countries sometimes it's very often that we lack resources needed for AI infrastructure, etc. So we need to take advantage of open source opportunities that are available, and for doing that we need to fight against barriers, against the diffusion of technology, and say that we don't need discrimination. We need to actually more open access to the technology for everybody.
I'll say just that looking at the title, I'd rather go to AI for the Global South from inclusion to governance rather than from governance to inclusion, putting the inclusion as the articulating point for the governance mechanism to be built.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us. The conversation shall continue over the next 3 days.